Welcome to the Be Dadly podcast, where we discuss all things dadly, from being an entrepreneur while caring for toddlers to raising screenagers and talking the birds and the bees. We're here to help you traverse the vast and dynamic landscape of fatherhood. Enjoy practical advice, lots of puns, and even a few heart-touching moments.
And the dad jokes are pretty good too.
And now your host, Brandon Jones.
Just like that, we are back, folks. Welcome back to the Be Dadly podcast. I'm Brandon Jones, your host. This is part 2 of our episode of punishment versus discipline. We're talking about the difference between punishment and discipline. While it sounds subtle in the words and the way that we use it, the truth is it's very powerful. And this concept, I think, will make a big difference in your parenting. If you have missed part 1, the quick recap here is that we talked about how punishment leads to what are called the 4 R's of punishment from Jane Nelson's book, Positive Discipline. Those 4 R's are resentment, retreat, rebellion, and revenge. If you've missed part 1, I want to encourage you to go and watch that episode so you have a little bit more context here. If you have already listened to part 1, I think you'll really enjoy today's video and the podcast. Go ahead and give us a like and share and comment, do all that stuff to help the channel out, and we will get to the episode right now. Enjoy. So how do we move into discipline, right? How do we embody consequences and hold boundaries and do all those things without making them go through those 4 R's? So that's where we want to look at different consequence methods, okay? And first and foremost, before I get into consequences, because I think everyone wants to use a consequence, it's like the first thing that you want to go to is I want to give my child a consequence. I want to tell you something. There's a ratio in a relationship, and this can happen with your wife, this can happen with a coworker, this can happen with your boss, etc. There's a ratio in a relationship at which if criticism and correction exceeds connection, you're going to have relationship problems. The child, the partner, the boss, or maybe you as an employee is going to feel those resentment emotions. They're going to feel certain things that are not healthy in the relationship. So if you have been really busy and you haven't been able to connect with your child in an adequate way, you haven't been able to create that quality of connection, and you're correcting them a lot. You're ordering them around, bossing them around, directing them on everything to do, when to wake up, when to go to sleep, what to eat, what not to do, all of those things. When you're bossing and doing all of that, you're rubbing the relationship raw. And if you don't have that connection piece in place, almost nothing I'm going to tell you moving forward is even going to work, because connection is essential to the relationship. The child must know that you want a relationship with them, that you care about connecting with them, that you want to know who they are, what they value, who they want to be, their vision for their life, that you want to know them and that you see them as a valuable contributor to your family. So you've got to make sure the connection piece is in place, because again, if correction exceeds connection, you're going to have some problems, okay? So with that preface out of the way, because that's really important, let's get into discipline. So discipline is about holding a sense of respect and about teaching and about being firm all at the same time. So if you go to correct your child and you can't hold the respectful tone or the respectful face or calmness inside of yourself, you need to wait till you can. Because the moment that you've got all this charge in you, you're actually distracting from the learning opportunity. And on top of that, you're actually making kind of yourself the focus. And what's crazy is that when we get really animated and we get angry and we put all that energy into our child when they do the wrong thing, they can actually become addicted to that. I know that sounds crazy, but it can actually reinforce the behavior. It's like, it doesn't make sense. It's like, why would a child want this negative energy? But if you think about it this way, especially if you've been really busy, if the child isn't really getting a whole lot of connection, or they're not getting you in a real animated way, in a loving way, and they get this, but they do get this response from you when they do something wrong, and you become super animated and you stop and you talk to them and you go have a lecture and you spend this time correcting them and you tell them, hey, I love you, but this is why you've got to change this thing. And you spend all that time with them. Somewhere in their subconscious it says, hey, this works. This gets my parents' attention. This gets focus on me. This happens in the classroom with kids that don't feel like they really fit in, or they don't belong, or they can't find their way into contributing to the group. They'll just stand out as class clowns, and then they get all kinds of attention. So the same thing can happen in our home. We got to be really careful of this. We could reinforce the wrong behavior because we're not aware that the way that we become emotionally charged will actually create a slightly addictive experience for them, where they're addicted to doing the wrong thing because it gets them attention. And it gives them a little hit of power. It gives them the sense that they're a little bit powerful because they got an adult bit all bent out of shape, right? So we don't want that to happen. So we got to be careful. So when you go to correct your child, or you go to teach them a valuable skill or characteristic that they need, make sure you are not emotionally charged. Do your very best to be calm in your face, calm in your voice, right? You can share with them it's important. Share with them that it matters. Share with them that you've got to hold a boundary here, but do it in a respectful way. It'll change everything. Because the truth is that your children are okay learning a lesson from you as long as they can maintain their dignity. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. Now, holding that respect boundary and being firm, there's a couple different types of consequences you can use. And the very first consequence I want to teach you about is called a natural consequence. A natural consequence occurs naturally. It doesn't require you to be involved. You literally can allow the child to experience the natural consequence, have to deal with the challenge that it comes with, deal with the problem, and have to become resourceful on their own, have to deal with it on their own. And you just being out of the way allows life to show them. A great example is, a child, for example, may not bring their jacket to an event. You said, hey, it's cold outside. Be sure to bring your jacket, right? And the child doesn't bring the jacket. Well, the natural consequence of not bringing their jacket is they're cold and they're uncomfortable and they're upset because they didn't bring the jacket. And so you can allow that child to experience a consequence. Another one would be, for example, if they forgot their lunch, they keep forgetting their lunch. If you take the lunch to them every time and then you give them a punishment for it, well, now you're the bad guy. And you're both the rescuer and the persecutor, right? So they get to play the victim card. If you know anything about the victim's triangle, you're playing one of those 3 points. You were the victim because you had to leave your work and now you're angry, so you persecute them, and now you're rescuing them because you bring the lunch to the school and now they're the victim. You're playing the victim's triangle. But if you exit that triangle and you just say, hey, I'm going to allow you to be responsible for your lunch from here on out. And I know that there have been times when you've forgotten. I just want you to know I'm not going to bring it to school, the next time you forget. I love you. And it takes responsibility to remember your lunch. It takes responsibility to do this. And that's something I want you to know and have in your tool belt. I want you to be able to be responsible. And one of the best ways you can practice is by bringing your lunch to school. So if you forget the next time, you're going to have to figure out how to maybe borrow some food from someone else, maybe, figure some other way out to get yourself some food that day, but I won't be bringing you your lunch. That is the way that you would hold a boundary, and you would allow them to experience a natural consequence for them not being responsible. And what's great is that you can talk to your blue in your face about responsibility. You can tell them a million different reasons why they should be responsible. But until they feel it and experience it firsthand from life, they're likely going to not listen to you. Because just like you and I, we don't really like it when people tell us what to do. We've got to go out in there and try it on our own. We've got to learn the hard way. And your children are the exact same way. They got to learn the hard way. And sometimes you just got to get out of your own way and let them do that. Okay? So that's a natural consequence. However, natural consequences should not be used all the time because there are times that safety is involved. Now, I mentioned the jacket thing. I personally don't believe that if a child gets cold, they actually get a cold. I've read that that's been proven as a myth. There are many children in very cold cultures that don't wear jackets and, experience very cold and harsh conditions, and they don't get colds. So colds are viruses. They don't come from getting cold. So anyways, that's my experience on it. Maybe you believe that them not having a jacket would impede their safety, but I don't believe it would. Neither here nor there. The point that I need to make here is that the time in which you don't want to use a natural consequence is when safety is a concern. Okay. A natural consequence, for example, of a child not wearing a helmet and riding a bike is that they could get brain damage. That is not the kind of natural consequence we want to allow our children to experience. The natural consequence, so we don't want to do that whenever there's safety involved, right? And you also wouldn't want to use a natural consequence when it would basically affect everyone else. For example, if a child forgot their luggage and you guys are going on a cruise, that's going to kind of stink for everybody. So a natural consequence doesn't really make sense right there. But there are plenty of places, where natural consequences are totally something you should just allow them to happen so they may have a life experience that actually helps them want to learn that characteristic or life skill that will last them a lifetime. Okay, there are plenty of other places where that would happen. When a natural consequence is not appropriate, you want to use what is called a logical consequence. A logical consequence needs to follow what are called the 4 R's of logical consequences. The very first R, and maybe one of the most important, is that it's related. If the consequence is not related to the event, for example, we talked about how if Johnny hit Sally and Johnny doesn't get ice cream, that is completely unrelated. Ice cream has nothing to do with hitting somebody. However, if the consequence was that you separated the two of them for a short bit of time, that would actually be related. Because when we hit each other, safety's off the table. And then when safety's off the table, we can't play together, right? That is a related consequence. So you want to make sure it's related. The second one is you want to make sure that it is respectful. Use respect when you are giving consequence. Allow your child to maintain their dignity. You can even say something like, hey, I know that might not have been your intention, right? Like, I know your intention wasn't to, hurt your sibling, but out of a fit of anger, you did. And so we're going to take a short break and you guys can come back and try again in 20 minutes or something like that. That is handled in a respectful way, as opposed to, I can't believe you hit your sister. What did I tell you? Now go to your room right this moment. Right? There's a little bit of disrespect in that. It's not really thinking even of the best in that child. You're really just almost even attacking their character. What's wrong with you? That kind of energy. So you don't want to do that. That's a disrespectful way to handle it. But if you can handle it with respect, boy, you'll find that these are a lot more effective. So you have related, respectful, and then you got reasonable. Reasonable in severity and reasonable in duration, right? Which are kind of the same thing, but you want to make sure that you are not giving them a consequence that is completely unreasonable. For example, if a child forgets to wear their helmet on the bike and they're only 5 years old, you don't want to say, now you can't ride the bike for the rest of the week. Okay, that's unreasonable. That's a very long time for a 5-year-old. But if you said, hey, bud, I want you to take a 20-minute break on the bike, and whenever you go to get on it again, in 20 minutes, when that timer goes up, you're welcome to get on it again, but I want to make sure you're wearing your helmet. You got it? That is a reasonable consequence, right? It's got reasonable duration. It's reasonable in severity. It's handled with respect. And, you can even say, I know you didn't mean to forget. I want you to just take a 20-minute break, just like we talked about. Okay. So that would be a reasonable consequence. The next R is reveal in advance. So you want to make sure that these children know, they understand what the expectation is, right? Here are the expectations of riding a bike. I expect you to wear a helmet. I expect you to, get out of the way if there are cars coming, those kinds of things. Those are the expectations. And to reveal in advance, we would say something like, I totally have confidence that you will wear a helmet and that you will stay out of the street when there are cars coming. I have full confidence that you will do that. However, just in case you happen to forget, we're going to take a 20-minute time where we can't ride the bike. You can do anything else. You can go play with other kids. You can do anything else, but you can't ride your bike for 20 minutes, okay? Because it's related to the bike. So that would be revealed in advance. Now you can give that consequence. If it's a first-time offense and they have never been told what the consequence might be, that would be the time to train them, to share with them why it's important, maybe unpack that with them, and then share with them that you have confidence that they'll do it, but just in case they don't, the logical consequence here is going to be what? Like, you're going to share that thing with them. You're going to share exactly what that would be, and that way it's revealed in advance. So those are the 4 R's of logical consequences. They're related, they're respectful, they're reasonable in severity and duration, and they are revealed in advance. If you follow those 4 R's before you give a consequence, and I know it takes a little bit more thinking, but if you follow those, you'll be practicing more discipline than punishment. You will be practicing embodying, holding a boundary that makes sense to the child, that won't get as much pushback, that they'll respect, okay? And so the last thing I want to say about this discipline piece versus punishment is that instead of always thinking of a punishment, consider trying to be solution focused and just find the solution with them. Ask your child what the solution is. Tell them that, hey, this is not acceptable, right? For example, it's not acceptable for you not to wear a helmet because you only have one brain and you're going to need it for the rest of your life. So that's not acceptable. But what is acceptable? What would we need to do? And focus on a solution. I know you keep forgetting. So what would a solution be to not forget? How could we remind ourselves? Oh, we could put our helmet on the handle of the bike. That way that before you even take off of the bike, you've got your helmet right there. Oh, that would be a good solution. That every time you finish the bike, you put the helmet on it. What are some other solutions, right? Just stay solution focused. When you stay solution focused with your children, you help bring out their resourcefulness, their creativity, their responsibility, their sensibility, their ability to communicate with you and become effective solution focused people. And that's what we really want. So I really want to encourage you, don't always just try to think of a consequence. Try to think of a solution. Try to come up with one with them and see how that changes the tone of the relationship, the experience that you have. So those are just a few ideas of how we can create the difference between that punishment style and the discipline style. And I hope that you'll see that you don't have to become permissive. You're not becoming a softie. You're not just letting your children grow wild. You are holding boundaries, but you're just doing it in a way that is a bit more respectful and a bit more even effective. I promise you, it's more effective than punishment. I hope you will give this a shot. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. If you would like to book that consultation, go to www.bedadly.com and book that consultation today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it useful. I want to encourage you to pick up the book Positive Discipline from Jane Nelson. I am a certified parent educator in positive discipline, and the whole reason I did is because I found this little book to be very, very, very effective. It's extremely insightful. She helps not only parents, but also educators. Great book. If you want to accelerate your learning curve, like I said, book the consultation with me and we can work on your biggest challenges. Hope you have a beautiful and blessed day. I'd love to hear your feedback. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, have a great day, you guys, and good luck with the new tool. I hope it works for your family. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you've received some value from it, please share it with other dads and consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you in the next episode. Looking for support with your fatherhood journey? Go to bedadly.com and take our Dadly Disposition quiz and learn helpful insights on how you can overcome power struggles with your kids.